Hello students and welcome to section 19. In this section we'll be doing some examples for word problems and we'll be ending our chapter quadratic equation. So here I have example from page number 51. The example states a train travels 360 kilometers with uniform speed. That means there is a train, this is point A, this is point B, and this distance point AB is 360 kilometers. The speed of the train is increased by 5 kilometers per hour. It takes 48 minutes less to cover the same distance. Now, the, the important point here is to understand that distance is equals to speed into time. So as we can see that the train is traveling from A to B, that means the distance is always going to be constant. So if distance is going to be constant, we have to see what happens to speed and time simultaneously. So let's say if the speed increases, that means if I go faster, that means my time will reduce. So if my speed goes up, my time goes down. And similarly, conversely, if my speed goes down, my time goes up. If some of you are facing problems understanding this, I'll just give you a better example. Imagine that you are traveling this 360 kilometers by walking. So obviously the speed of walking is very slow. So you take a lot of time to cover this 360 kilometers. But instead, if you are traveling in a train, the speed is much higher than walking. So as the speed goes up, the time goes down. So this is what this concept is. So now here we have to define how we are going to solve our equation. So let's say that 360 is equals to speed into time. This is because 360 is the distance that is being traveled and distance is always speed into time. Now, as we read the statement, the second statement says that the speed of the train is increased by 5 kilometers per hour. It takes 48 minutes less to cover the same distance. So here we need to focus on two two concepts we need to equate to each other. So as we know that distance is always going to be constant. So let's try it out. Let's assume that speed is equals to x. So the time taken when the speed is x is equals to 360 divided by x hours. Now this hours is very important because our distance is in kilometers and speed, the SI unit of speed is 360 kilometers per hour. Now this next statement says that if the speed is increased by 5, that means from x my speed has gone up to x plus 5. This means that the time taken will now be reduced. So in the second statement, time taken is going to be equal to 360. Now remember, in this case, our speed has increased. So we need to take that new speed into account, which is x plus 5. So 360 divided by x plus 5 is the new time taken. Now, the statement says the speed of the train is increased by 5 kilometers per hour. It takes 48 minutes less to cover the same distance. So here I have case 1, here I have case 2. In case 1, my speed is x and my time is equals to 360 divided by x. In case 2, my speed is equals to x plus 5, which means my speed has increased. So therefore, the time taken is going to be 360 divided by x plus 5, which means that the time has decreased. So from this, I can say that the time taken in the second case is low. Now the statement says it takes 48 minutes less to cover the same distance when the speed has been increased by 5. So I can safely say that 360 divided by x plus 5. Now remember, this is the new time taken and this is going to be less. So therefore we have to add 48 minutes to this, which is equals to 360 divided by x, which is our original time. If you want to frame this, we can say new time plus extra time is equals to old time taken. So in our new case, our speed increased, which is why our time decreased, and therefore, in order to equate this to our old time, we need to add some value to the new time. So from equation number 1, now all we have to do is solve this quadratic equation. So we have 360 divided by x plus 5 plus 48 is equals to 360 divided by x. Now, all of you have solved enough quadratic equation questions in order to have a good practice, and you can solve questions by yourself. So in word problems, we are going to focus on how to get the quadratic equations rather than solving the quadratic equations. So for word problems, all of you have to solve the quadratic equations by yourself. You can solve it by any method you prefer, completing the square, factorization, or formula method, whichever you feel is easy. But I would recommend that practice those methods that are hard for you so that you get good enough practice for your exams. Now, moving on to our practice set 2.6, we'll be solving 3 questions from this particular practice set, and the rest of the other questions will be all for you to solve. So I have question number 1 here. The product of Pragati's age 2 years ago and 3 years hence is 84. Find her present age. So let's say that we have Pragati's age as x. Now here the one important thing that we need to mention is Pragati's current age is x. That means at this particular moment her age is assumed as x. Now back to our question. The product of Pragati's age 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, Pragati's age is going to be x minus 2. Now I'll explain this with an example. Let's say your age currently is 16. 2 years ago, your age was 14. So if your current age is 16 and I minus 2 from your current age, that will give you your age 2 years ago. So similarly, Pragati's age 2 years ago becomes x minus 2. And 3 years hence, so Pragati's age 3 years hence. 3 years hence means 3 years in the future. So if my age today is 16, 3 years later my age is going to be 16 plus 3, which is 19. So my current age plus 3 years. Now the question has stated that these two values product of these two values is 84. So all I have to do is multiply x minus 2 with x plus 3 and equate this to 84, and I'll get my quadratic equation. Once you get this quadratic equation, all you have to do is solve it. Now moving on to our next question, I'll be solving question number 7. Question number 7. Pratik takes 8 hours to travel 36 kilometers downstream and return to the same spot. The speed of the boat in still water is 12 kilometers per hour. Find the speed of water current. Now again, we have a question with distance and time and speed concept. So as we have solved a lot of questions from chapter number 1 and from our solved example in chapter number 2, I'll leave this question for you. We'll be moving on to some other question. I'll pick question number 5. So here I have question number 5. Now question number 5 states that Suyash scored 10 marks more in second test than in the first. So before we start solving, we have to define what is x. Now remember, as I said earlier, whatever the value, whichever value is the lower one, we define that as the x value. So in this case, Suyash has scored 10 more marks in the second test than the first. So I'm going to assume the marks in the first test as x. Marks in first test is equal to x, which implies marks in the second test is equals to x plus 10, as the question has said that Suyash scored 10 marks more in the second test. Now moving on to our next statement, 5 times the score of the second test. Now we need to solve word problems one statement at a time and not read the question once at once. So we're going to read one statement, we're going to write down what it has provided us, what information I received from that statement, and then we're going to move on to the next statement. So 5 times the score of the second test. So 5 into score of the second test is x plus 10 is the same as, that means this value is equal to, is the same as square of the score in the first test. Now the score in the first test is x and square of this is x square. So if I simply rearrange the terms to the RHS, I'll get my quadratic equation as 0 is equals to x square minus 5x minus 50. And this is my quadratic equation, and then you all can solve this equation and get the final answer. Moving on to our next question. This is question number 8. Now this question is a very conceptual question. Make sure you pay attention to this one. And even if you don't understand after watching the video, you can contact me and I'll help you out with this question. So Pintu takes 6 more days than those of Nishu to complete a certain work. If they worked together, they finish it in 4 days. How many days would it take to complete the work if they work alone? So now Pintu takes 6 days more than those of Nishu to complete a certain work. That means Nishu takes less time to complete a work. So I'm going to assume that Nishu takes X days to complete a work. And Pintu takes 6 more days. So which implies Pintu takes 6 more days than Nishu. That means Pintu takes X plus 6 days to complete the same work. Now this is very important. The work that they are doing is the same, which is why X plus 6 has some significance. Complete the same work. Now before we move on, we need to understand who completes the work faster. So again, we'll take an example. Let's say you're completing a chapter and you're trying to write down a chapter. Let's say Nishu takes X days to write one chapter and Pintu takes X plus 6 days to write the same chapter. So who do you think is doing the work faster? So as we clearly know that it takes a lot of time to complete work, and if you complete the work in less time, that means the guy or the person who is taking less time is working faster. So we know that Nishu is working faster and Pintu is working slower. Now the work, we are going to assume one more value. Let the total work to be completed be W. So this means that W work is completed in X days by Nishu, and the same W work is completed in X plus 6 days by Pintu. Now, what we need to focus on is how to form our quadratic equation. The question says that if they work together they'll finish the work in 4 days. So if they work together, that means every day Nishu is going to do some work and Pintu is going to do some work. So let's take this into account. So if they work together, that means the W work is going to get completed in 4 days by both of them. Now we need to focus on this particular concept, and this is how our quadratic equation is going to form. So if W work is completed in 4 days by both, the question comes is how much work is going to be completed in 1 day. So all we need to do is cross multiply the values. The question mark goes here. Cross multiply values. What happens is we have W into 1 is equals to 4 into whatever work is done. So the question mark comes out as W into 1 divided by 4. This is equals to W by 4. So in one day, both of them together complete W divided by 4 work. Now back to our work for both of them individually. So now if Nishu completes the work in X days, that means Nishu will complete the same work, or rather Nishu will complete W divided by X work in 1 day. So we're going to do this mathematically. W is equals to X days. How much for 1 day? This is question mark. So all that we have to do is cross multiply, and the question mark comes as W divided by X. Similarly for Pintu, we have W is equals to X plus 6 days. So the amount of work that Pintu does in 1 day becomes W divided by X plus 6. Now remember, when we got this particular value, W divided by 4, both of them are working together. That means the work rate for 1 day of Nishu will be added to the work rate of 1 day for Pintu, and that is going to be the total work completed in 1 day. So our quadratic equation comes as work done by Nishu in 1 day plus work done by Pintu in 1 day, and the amount of work that they both do in 1 day is going to be equal to the work done, or W divided by 4. This is equals to W divided by 4, because as we saw in the last slide that in 1 day both of them, when they work together, they take 4 days to complete the work, and in 1 day they'll take W divided by 4. They'll complete W divided by 4 work. So all we have to do is now substitute the values for work done by Nishu in 1 day and work done by Pintu in 1 day. So this becomes W divided by X plus W divided by X plus 6. This is equals to W divided by 4. Now in the next step, all we have to do is take W common. So I have W into 1 by X plus 1 upon X plus 6. This is equals to W divided by 4. W is common, so I can cancel out W, and I am left with the equation 1 divided by X plus 1 divided by x plus 6. This is equals to 1 divided by 4. And once you get this, you can get the quadratic equation by solving this set of equation, and you'll get the answer. Now, this is all for this section. I hope you all understood whatever was done in this particular video. If you do face some problems, do communicate me. Practice set 2.6 is a little bit conceptually challenging. So if you face problems in any of the questions, do contact me and I'll help you out. One additional announcement. There will be a worksheet for chapter number 1 and chapter number 2. You will have to solve this worksheet. It is going to be a sort of worksheet that will involve some exam related questions and exam related the pattern of the question paper will be exam related. The one good thing that you all have to know, or you all must know, that this is an open book test, so all of you can use your books while you solve the questions, and you have to submit this worksheet whenever this worksheet is given to you in 2 days of time. So if this worksheet, let's say, is given today to you, so today is the 15th of June. You will have to submit this on 17th of June. So this worksheet will be available to you in 1 or 2 days. Once you get this worksheet, you have 2 days to submit this. This section will end now. Thank you.